it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you my Mission Inspiration Art Journal page. This is a Facebook group provided by Mike Deacon Art, and I realized I've been doing his challenges for a few years now. I was looking at my playlist and I'm like, wow, I've been doing that for a while. So this is March 2018, in case I didn't say that. And the first step was to cover your page with tissue or napkins. I decided to use this gel print I received in Happy Mail. And the reason that I chose it is because one of the word opportunities is grid for this mission, and I thought that that kind of looked like a grid, and I thought that was a good place to start. Also, the colors, one of the colors was navy blue, which this isn't really a navy blue, but it had that blue color on it, so I thought it was a good choice to use out of my pile of things. So I'm attaching this using a Liquitex matte gel medium. It's kind of a thicker formulation, and I'm using a silicone brush that I'm using to apply it on there, and then applying it to the page, which is ungessoed watercolor paper, and then also applying it to the back of the tissue, and making sure that all the bubbles and excess are squeezed out using a plastic card, a key card type thing. And that works really well to get everything smoothed down. The next step was to add gesso or paint using a baby wipe. And so I decided that since the colors are terracotta, cream, and navy blue, that I would make my background a cream color. So I'm using Liquitex Basics Unbleached Titanium and putting that all over the page, which also kind of pushes back the design a little bit. And then I decided I wanted to darken up around the edges just to kind of frame the page, and so I decided to use, I think it's Prussian blue. Yeah, Prussian blue Deco Art Media Fluid Paint, and just go around the edges with the same baby wipe. It still has some of the cream on it, so it kind of tones it down a little bit. So that worked out well. The next step was to make marks over your page, and I was like, what do I want to do? You can see me tapping my fingers. I wanted to add in that terracotta color, so I decided to use, I think it's red oxide, or maybe burnt sienna, or raw sienna. I don't know. Anyway, I was looking for a color that I thought was appropriate. I can't remember which one I picked, but all the products that I use will be in the description box below the video, so you can go down there. Those are affiliate links, and if you click on them, they take you to Amazon, and then anything that you purchase, I get a few cents to help me out with my channel, and that's really appreciated because I don't have a lot of money to buy art stuff to show on my channel. So I'm using this brick stencil. This is a discontinued Dina Wakley stencil, and I've cut it apart. It also had numbers on it. You guys might own this one, but you can't really purchase it anymore. But there's other brick stencils out there, and I'll find one for you in case you need one. And I'm adding these marks through the stencil using an artist sponge, which is my new favorite stenciling tool. I did forget about it the other day and used a cosmetic sponge, which was bloppy and messy, and so I'm glad that I remembered, oh yeah, I wanted to use an artist sponge. So put the terracotta color through that, and it also kind of looks like brick, which is why I picked that stencil. So you just add some interesting stuff around the edges. Then the next step was to add texture with paste or embossing powder. I decided to use molding paste. This is light molding paste from Golden. Dries quickly, and that's the reason that I picked it. I've thought I would maybe use the copper molding paste from the Crafter's Workshop that I have, and once I thought about it, I thought, you know what, that stuff takes forever to dry. I don't have a lot of time here. I don't have a lot of time to wait for that. So, and you will see why I don't have time in a little bit, and I'll explain it to you. So I'm applying that paste using a metal palette knife and just pushing the paste through the stencil Then lifting the stencil back up and removing any excess with the knife, just scratching it off. So these numbers, they don't mean anything. They're just there for texture. That's it. And then I give this a good dry with my heat tool to make sure that everything's dry. I didn't want that modeling paste to be white. And that's the reason that I had considered the copper, but then I didn't want to wait for the copper to dry. So I'm using some golden high flow acrylic and letting it drip down the page and over all my numbers and things, and that colors them, and it also just gives a little bit of interest to the page as well. But I am blotting it back quite a bit. I don't want this indigo color to take over the world here. I still want the colors of my page to be there. So then the next step was to add a focal image or two or three, and I decided to draw my focal image. And I'm using a picture as a reference, which is a picture of, I think her name is Shaniqua something, and she just, the reason that I picked that picture is because I searched for a picture that was to do with the word attitude, because I was making my page about attitude, and that's one of the 5 words. And when I saw this picture of her and her finger up, and she's, doing that like, oh no you didn't thing or whatever. I loved the picture. It's such a cool, funny picture, and just embodies what the word attitude means to me. Obviously, attitude can mean other things, but when I see the word, I think about someone having an attitude, someone using body language and facial, uh, moving their face in certain ways and moving their body in certain ways and maybe their voice to say something that you can tell what they're saying without them even saying any words, just by the way, the attitude of their body. And so that's what my page is about today. And I also found a quote when I was doing my Google search that is good to go. I first found the quote and I thought, this is a really good quote. I like this quote. This is so true. And then I continued to search on images and I found this picture. The drawing doesn't end up looking like her or really like the reference at all. It's just trying to get an idea as I'm drawing of where the hands would be, where the arms would be, how you would look in that position. It's not necessarily something I can remember in my head. So I was telling you guys earlier that I needed to hurry on this page, and I didn't have a lot of time to wait for things to dry and stuff, and this is why. And I have my desk put under a window, and I like to look out the window. It looks out over my backyard and the wash, which is a dry riverbed behind my house. And there's trees and there's animals and I can see the birds and things. And so I really love having my desk in this position. However, in the afternoon, it starts to bring this light across my desk and then I have to stop filming. And I didn't have time today to stop filming. I needed to continue to film if I could, because I need to clean up my studio. I have guests coming and I've got to clean up all those jelly printed papers that are everywhere in the middle of my floor and get some stuff organized and so that I can fit the blow up bed in there for the guest. So I needed to get this page done, and I was like trying to hurry as fast as I could, and you can see the light is creeping across the desk, and I finally do stop. And it was also a cloudy day, and so the clouds are going in front of the sun and then they're going away, and it's just, actually, as I watched the video when I was editing, I thought that's actually pretty funny. But for now, I've got some different colors of acrylic paint out. The cream color, which is unbleached titanium, and then red oxide and sienna of some sort, and I'm mixing and blending and trying to get the shadows and highlights. I end up getting out some burnt umber, I think, at some point. The skin is a little bit too warm, I think, probably for a black person. The picture was of a black person, and I was trying to make that skin tone, and I think the skin is a little bit more like maybe someone who's I don't know, Indian maybe, or maybe Latino. It's warmer than I wanted, but it turns out fine in the end. I just have to keep layering, adding the highlights, adding the shadows, trying to figure out, you know, to try to make it look more realistic. I haven't drawn or painted anything in a while. I feel kind of rusty. I feel like I wasn't on my game, but it turned out okay. You can tell what it is, and you can see the attitude in her body. You can see her little finger going, no, you didn't. You know, I think it portrays what I meant it to portray, but it's absolutely not realistic. I sure wished I knew how to draw and paint realistic. I need a lot more practice. But this is an art journal page. It's not going in a museum, so I don't think we need to worry about that much. So at some point I get out my water brush and decide that that's a better choice than the other brush that I was using. And that's because the paint is starting to dry a little bit, and um, I can thin down the paint and blend a little bit better with this with a wet brush, and I didn't feel like dipping my brush into the water and the blotting it off and all that stuff, which makes these little water barrel brushes so handy because the water is just right there, and all you have to do is squeeze a little bit and the water comes down on the bristles, and then you can have diluted paint, you can have more blending power. um, they're very handy. I really like them, so I use them for a lot of things. So if you don't have any, I recommend you get some, and there's linked below the box. So that's when I quit. And during the time that I was just sitting there waiting to figure out how I could do something with the light, I did draw back in some of the lines. By the way, I don't know if I said it, but I used a Stabilo All pencil, which is a highly water reactive pencil to draw this. It draws really well over acrylics, but it also does bleed when you are doing the painting and coloring in portion, which can sometimes be good and sometimes be bad. So I also added a little bit of that indigo blue paint to the pants, and then as far as the shirt, I wanted it to remain kind of a cream color. So I've got the terracotta, I've got the navy, I've got the cream, which are the three colors of the challenge. I've got the word attitude, and I did all the steps, so I'm meeting the challenge. So I just continue to fuss. I'm messing with her mouth, uh, her hair, adding a little bit more white into the shirt, things like that. And then finally I decide that she's complete, and I move to adding metallic shimmer splatters or drips. And first I do a dry brushing over those uh, textured numbers and things that I have, arrows, so that they grab the highlight of the copper. I'm using copper paint. This is PBO Dyna um, paint, iridescent paint. And then I get the paint in the brush wet, and I do some splatters and then clean them up off the girl's face and stuff. I also have a white Stabilo that I used a little bit to try to brighten up the corners of the eyes and things. So black Stabilo, white Posca pen. So then the next step, of course, what is it? 7 is to add a quote, phrase, or title. And I'm using my Brother P-Touch label maker. This is an older model, but they have them and they're fairly inexpensive. A lot more inexpensive than they were back in the day when I bought this. But it has 5 different sizes of fonts. Excuse me. And I go for this second one, which is larger but more thin. By the fifth one, and they're very fat. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I printed out my quote. You could also print out your quote on a printer, a, just your regular printer that goes with your computer. And then if you're using inkjet, you kind of need to give it a little bit of care when you're attaching it with your matte medium because the inkjet ink will smear a little bit. But I really haven't had much of a problem with that. But I found this in the closet a while ago, probably 6 months ago or something, and this is really a nice tool to have for attaching words to your art journal pages if you don't like your own handwriting, which I cannot stand my handwriting. I can't write in a straight line, and I obviously can't put stickers on in a straight line either. I should have pulled the masking tape off first, and then I would have maybe done this a little bit straighter, but I did fix it with kind of an optical illusion way of fixing it that you'll see in a bit. So now I'm taking all this masking tape off that's protecting everything around the edges, and that's when I realized that that top sticker is not straight. And the next step happens to be create a contrasting border or frame. So I start by putting Posca pen, black Posca pen around my page, around the edges. I've of course have masked everything off, and so I get that white border already, which is nice. And it is contrasting, so really all I had to do is take my masking tape off and I had the border already. But I did put a thin black line around, and then I decided that I would kind of fix this crooked sticker by putting the lines on straight and covering up the not straight edges, if that makes sense. So instead of putting the line right along where it should be, along the edge of the sticker, I am making it the lines straight, and then also adding some little squiggles and dots, which also just attract the eye and detract from the fact that the sticker's a little bit crooked. You know, it's a thing. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Of course, it'll be in my playlist of all the pages that I've done for Mike Deacon. Of course, don't forget about the Pick-a-Stick Challenge, which is similar but different, and that's the one that I provide along with Peg Robinson, but it does have prompts. They're just one-word prompts, and there is a color thing now and whatever. So kind of the same but different. Of course, remember to give this a thumbs up, leave me a comment or question below. Share this on your Pinterest or your Facebook, and of course, subscribe if you haven't already. That's it for me. Bye-bye.